start with now and then she rereads the manuscript of the entire torrid affair. Sometimes I look back on everything and it really is like flipping through like a book or like that you've already read or like a movie that you've already watched, but you still don't fully understand. Um, and sorry, the past feels messy and complicated and painful to revisit. But like if I don't look back, how will I ever figure out like how I ended up where I ended up or how I got here where I am? So this line is like, for years I've survived like one chapter at a time. Stepdads, boyfriends, and even friends who were supposed to love me that hurt me. But then I met Jack, and for the first time, I saw what real love could look like. But even good relationships can't escape the damage of addiction. And my addiction became the story instead of us. So now, as I look back at everything, Jack, the people before him, and my choices after, and trying to make sense, I'm trying to make sense of it all. Um, so they compared their licenses. He said, I'm not a donor, but I'd give you my heart if you needed it. Men like that were a pattern before Jack, like the guys who would say the right thing, that made me feel the right thing in the moment. And I fell for it because I was a kid and I didn't know any better, and I was in manipulative relationships and abusive relationships. And anyway, they didn't want me. They just wanted control. And Jack was different. He didn't want control of me. He wasn't trying to change me. He just loved who I was. Um, and for the first time, I felt really safe. And I married him because, well, first because I loved him. Let's just start there. Let me not ignore that. But it felt like I had finally escaped the chaos of my life. Right. But it didn't take long for like my addiction to show up and start undoing everything. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're a professional." He said, "No, just a good Samaritan." Jack never played the hero. Like I said, he loved me for me, even when I was falling apart. But like I said, addiction really does change everything. And before Jack, I had people around me who acted like they were saving me or doing me a favor. Like my stepdad, who made me feel like I owed him something for fucking providing, even though I didn't choose for him to be there. Boyfriends who thought they were doing me a favor or told me they were doing me a favor by even like hanging around with me. Jack wasn't like that. But I carried a lot of that baggage into our marriage anyway. He said that if the sex was half as good as the conversation was, soon they'd be pushing strollers, but soon it was over. This line isn't about Jack for me, but it reminds me of like the fleeting connections that I had after him. I really sought validation in other people, chasing something I really didn't fully understand yet. Jack and we built a life together. But by the end, I had an affair and I lied to him about it. And I thought I could hide it. And I thought I could just move on from it and continue in the marriage. And, the distance between us kept growing. And we couldn't even really have a conversation because I just couldn't even be honest with him. So everything was falling apart. So when it was over, I convinced myself the only way to fix what was broken was to leave, right? But that's not healing, how healing works. But at that time I couldn't and I didn't want to stay anymore. And so walking away felt like not only the only choice I had left, but like the right choice, even though it broke us in different ways. In the age of him, she wished she was 30. and made coffee every morning in a French press. I just love this line because it's so like daydreamy and like, oh, like, one day I'll be that person. And like in my head, my thoughts are always like, that's just what it's going to be. Like, there's no consideration of what it's going to take to get there. Like, from to me sitting here in like a t shirt to that woman who makes a protein shake every morning and goes to the gym and all that shit. So I just love the romanticization, or I don't even know if that's a word, but of that line, because that is so me. In the years of my marriage, I was really trying to be this person that I wanted to be, that I thought I should be, like mature, responsible, put together. And I was all of those things, don't get me wrong, before my addiction really kind of stripped all of that away. I cooked dinner every night. I played the part. I convinced myself that like this was it. Like this was what I had always been aiming for, because I was. Um, but like deep down, I was still kind of that girl who didn't really know who I was outside of other people's expectations of me. And whether that's of like just societal expectations or like my mother's fucking expectations or boyfriends, whoever, whatever. I was just trying to, I guess I was still kind of struggling with that. So afterwards, she only ate kids' cereal and couldn't sleep unless it was in her mother's bed. When my marriage ended, I fell apart, but like didn't. Like I fell apart to the point where I knew I couldn't even confront it. So I had to distract myself. I had to like push that away. It didn't feel like freedom leaving. It felt, I guess at some points it felt like freedom, but it also felt like failure. Um, in the beginning, I'd spent so long pouring everything into that life. Um, I didn't know who I was without it. And I went back to like old comforts, trying to hold myself together the only way that I really knew how, like, because like I can't do drugs anymore. And I don't drink. And the one thing is empty validation from men, or I guess just people. I I see now that leaving was necessary, even though it was painful and messy. But I wasn't just grieving my marriage, I was grieving like this version of myself that I thought I was going to be, and that life that I thought I was going to have. And then she dated boys who were her own age with dartboards on the back of their doors. I love this line too, because it's just like paints such a picture. After Jack, I went looking for connections in all the wrong places. And like I said, I was distracting myself because I couldn't even confront it. I thought if I could just keep moving, I wouldn't have to face that part of it, like that mess that I made of my life. She thought about how he said, since she was so wise beyond her years, everything had been above board. She wasn't sure. So people have always told me that I'm so mature for my age. Or like you hear old soul or like whatever that shit is, but it just means like fucking traumatized. Or like you had to grow up like way too early or deal with shit that you should have never dealt with. But like being called all of those things as if, or being called strong and mature and whatever, is this as if it like justified any of the things that we had gone through, all of us, you know. Being called mature didn't protect me, being called strong didn't fucking protect me. It made me feel like I couldn't show when I was weak. um and it was never about me being wise. It was about people excusing what wasn't okay. um so as I look back, I see how much I lost trying to live up to what others needed me to be instead of figuring out who I was and what I needed. After the years passed, like scenes of a show, the professor said to write what you know. Mm. That makes me think of the last couple of months of my marriage where we had like a Friendsgiving. We had a birthday party for me. And then I think we had like a Christmas dinner with friends over or something. And Jack and I were a great team. Like we hosted this great party and like we didn't miss a beat. Like there was no like weirdness between us. Like it was all fine. Like it was just like we were just friends hosting a party and nobody would have ever thought anything of it. Um, but looking back, I guess that all feels really kind of performative. Um, like these stories I was telling myself. Like I was throwing these dinners and things and decorating my house and buying fucking Christmas decorations and shit because it made me happy and distracted me again from the fact that like I probably shouldn't be lying to my husband about an affair that I had and trying to just continue on and just keep going like everything is okay in our marriage. Um, and writing about all of that has really helped me kind of pull all of this shit apart. The past 7 months um, has been about being super honest with myself and my choices and the life that I want to build going forward. And looking backwards might be the only way to look forward. So that's exactly what I've been doing and looking back and revisiting hard parts of my life and figuring out what they mean. I can't leave the past behind, but I can learn from it. And moving forward, it's not about forgetting or erasing what happened. It's about either understanding it, accepting it, forgiving myself for it, but being able to move through it. And at least she had known what the agony had been for. So for me, this line is like the pain wasn't pointless. It's taught me what love really looks like and what I deserve. It's why I'm here now, showing up for myself and trying to build a life that's authentic to me now. And it's why I feel like I can really move forward. The only thing that's left is the manuscript. One last souvenir from my trip to your shores. The manuscript is part one, the version of me who survived, learned, and grew through every up and down, every high and low. It's a souvenir from my life that I've lived, the choices that I've made, and the moments that brought me here. But it's just one part of the story. And the last line, and now and then I read the manuscript or reread the manuscript, but the story isn't mine anymore. The version of me who wrote that chapter made it through. And now I'm stepping into part two, and the past doesn't hold the pen anymore. Like current me does, today me, who I am today. And I can honor who I was without staying stuck. And this is where my new story begins. And I feel really ready to write it. And I'm excited and scared and nervous and hopeful and happy and just grateful to do it with all of you guys. And with that, that's my song breakdown. And that's it. I'm going to stop recording and open the meeting.